Hey guys, wanted to take a few minutes today and share with you a project I've been working on, um, and that is building a typical console mixer inside of Mutools Mux or Mux. Not sure how to say it. I'm going to call it Mux. So this is kind of in the same vein as a mix bus by the Harrison mix bus or Mix Hub by Waves. Uh, Something that puts all of your channels on screen so that you're not clicking back and forth. Um, I know for me, that workflow, having worked with real mixers, I miss the most out of all the things that I miss in dealing in the analog world. I miss having access to all the controls. Now, this isn't the same thing as the tactile of being able to touch the knobs, but it's getting there. So anyway, in the process of making channel strips using different plugins, I came up with the idea of just grouping them all together so I could have a real mixer feel. I'll go into details on how I set this up in some future videos, but for right now, I just wanted to kind of put this out there, one, to share with you guys, and two, to get some feedback from people that have more experience working with this environment as to maybe some layout choices or just a better way of doing things. So I'll kind of walk you through what I have real quick. To open it up to see the flow of what's happening. Basically right now it's 8 channels. I've got 8 individual inputs. This actually requires a little behind the scenes manipulation of some code lines in the settings folder, which I'll get into later, in order to have the amount of inputs and outputs that you want. So in this case, I'm using 8 in, and I can have 8 out if I want. I'm using Reaper, which is very flexible as far as its routing. I'm not sure if this will work in other DAWs, but Reaper doesn't seem to have a problem with it so far. So each channel starts from the top, audio input, and goes out. I'm using the Airwindows plugins for console emulation, for saturation, for EQ, for compression, basically for everything except one effect. So it's basically entirely built around Airwindows stuff, which is free and open source as well. So that being said, you can see here this is my bus section, and here are my auxiliary sections. So this right now is an 8-channel board with 8 buses with 1 master bus and 6 auxiliary sends, set up just the way you would have a traditional console. Now the strips are made up so you have a gate, and then again this is all based off of the Airwindows channel strip. The gate, the high pass, low pass, the entire EQ section, as well as the compressors are Airwindows, and the time lag also. That's basically straight off the strip, every component of it. The 6 little buttons here are your auxiliary sends. And if you want to see where the auxiliary goes, I put some buttons up here for the auxiliaries as well as the buses. I put them every so often because eventually I'm going to expand this. So if you were scrolling this way, they show up periodically. So no matter where you are on here, you have access to your auxiliaries, which are here, 1, 2, 3, and so on. 3 reverbs. These are all again based on the Airwindows reverbs. This is the bright ambience. This is the matrix verb. This is the regular reverb. 2 instances of tape to delay from Airwindows. This is space modulator, space modulator from Valhalla from Valhalla. That is also free. I'll leave links to all the Airwindows stuff as well as the Valhalla stuff down below if you don't already have it. That way when you load up this project, it'll have everything that I have. And everything is, free, providing you have the Mutools Mux. This is version 7. It does work in version 8. It looks a little bit different because of the graphics, but everything seems to function, at least in my MuLab 8 version. So, same thing with the bus. I can open up my buses and see what's going on. These little buttons over here correspond to the bus channels. So, for instance, if I wanted to send this channel to bus number 1, we'll call it drums. I've got some of them labeled. This would actually need to be off, okay, not on. Now that's kind of backwards, but that's the way it is. The master is up here, so normally I would have my master off because I want everything going over to my buses. And in this case, channel 1 is going over to bus 1, which has, again, another Airwindows plugin, Buscolors. And you're able to select the different color here. And the harder you drive the input, the more kind of grit and saturation you get out of it. It's defeatable here. So this is basically would be my bus send 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for all the 8 buses. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Then click again on the bus, takes that away. So if you want to see that, on, off, and these work the same. Like I said, this is the master. This is my mute button. I haven't figured out how to do a solo button yet, but this effectively mutes the track. So on for mute, off for not mute. The saturation on this comes from the Airwindows channel 4, I believe. Let's go take a look. Nope, channel 8. That's basically here. So there's your drive, and that corresponds to that saturation button on that channel. I've got it set to API. I don't have this selectable from the main graphic element on the mixer. It's just something that's kind of behind the scenes. I have everything set to API for right now. You can mix or match or whatever. I didn't find it necessary to have on the channel. Just something else in the way. This also has the console emulation from Airwindows. There again, there's no parameters really other than gain. I had that set to max. So this is a summing, digital summing, analog summing, either way. This is kind of console emulation where these things are summing the individual channels to the console bus before it goes out to the output 1 and 2. Now this is only for when I have the master. You can see the master is going down here to these. Each bus doesn't do that. Each bus sends it over to the 8 bus, which inside of this you also have the same console built in here. I decided not to do it for every bus going out of everything from over here, just because it's already kind of getting CPU intensive, even at 8 tracks. But again, there's lots going on here, so it would be. You can see down here where it says 14%. That's basically what it's taking right now. I have a dual core Pentium i5, so it's taking 15-16%. But it's only using one core because it's only on one track. And that's how Reaper's going to allocate it. So if I were to have a bunch of audio and other things, then it would kind of divide everything up. So I don't think that's too bad. So if you look at this whole mixer as one effect, it's chewing up 15%. But then, Reaper's going to divide my other things up accordingly. So I think that's okay. I may later have to separate it up and maybe put my bus section on a different track, or my effects, my auxiliary effects on a different track, just to kind of break it up for the CPU. And one question I would have to any of you guys out there, I think I'm running the Airwindows console correctly. It is taking all of this information, and it's here, and it's summing directly here. Normally, on your regular DAW, you would put this at the end of your FX chain, and then put this on the beginning of your bus chain, which I think is the same thing here. The only difference is there's no fader in between, but the Airwindows says you would want that to be set at unity gain anyway. So in this case, it's not there. I think I have that set up correctly. And that's the way I have it in the bus also. This amplifier here, I'm using as my mute button. Basically, it's just a Mux amplifier, and I have the gain turned down. So when it's on, it effectively turns it off. The same thing I'm doing with the buses. It's an amplifier that I have turned down. That's why the lights on the mixing board are backwards. When it's on, it's actually muted. When it's off, it passes audio through. So in this case, you can see bus 1 is passing through, bus 2, 3, so forth. Okay, so back to the mixer. I've kind of gone minimal here as far as my labeling, because just like in a real-world mixer, you would not have... once you learn where things are, you don't look over top of the board and read every button, every knob. You just know where they are. Same thing here. It's real logical. High pass, low pass, your high bands, gain and frequency. The mid band only has a gain, low gain and frequency. The compression is just more compression and the speed of it. I didn't label the auxiliaries. They're from top to bottom, 1 to 6. Group them in 2 so that you kind of remember what they are. I set my reverbs up on the last 2, my delays in the middle 2, and whatever else on the top 2. And then of course, repeat on down the line. The EQ, again, from Airwindows Channel Strip, is a little bit unique, but very functional and sounds great. You set up your frequency for your low and your frequency for your high, and that determines the mid frequency, whatever's in between those two things. I didn't find the need to see the frequency or the gain. This is really, again, set up to use your ears. Turn it up until it sounds good or it sounds what you want. Don't worry about the frequencies. The whole mixer, the whole idea is set up that way. Just less distractions, less dragging around. So, sharing this with you guys. I'd love to get some feedback on if there's a better way to do things. I would really like to have a solo button on these, channels somehow. Or if there's a way that I can flip this around to where when the light is on, it tells me what I'm doing, except, rather than having when the light is off. I will be doing some more videos in the future to show you guys how I laid this out for those who don't have a whole lot of experience in building user interfaces on this platform. As well as, it looks like right now I've tried to have 2 or 3 8-channel mixer blocks going into the same bus, and I can do it, but I'm having to redraw or to repopulate everything to each thing, and it's kind of getting a little bit cumbersome. I think what I'll do in order to keep things simple for me, if my CPU will let me, is I'm going to build out 16 of these. Right now I only have 8, so I'll extend that out, and then that will put a little scroll bar down at the bottom to go through them all. But that's okay. That's okay. It's still better than clicking, every channel on a regular mixer, or when you're down here, once you get 16 channels, I would have the same thing. I'm still going to have to scroll. So it's the same thing there. So anyway, wanted to share that. Love to get some feedback on it. Check the links down below. I will put up this preset for Mux 7 in the bottom, as well as the link for Valhalla space modulation, and a link to Airwindows, as well as a list for all the different Airwindows things that I used in this. Because as soon as you go to open the preset, here it's going to want to know where all those things are. So we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks.